They say you don't build a plane around a gun. The conventional wisdom is that you design and build a gun, get it certified for flight, and then only then do you engineer an aircraft with the express purpose of carrying it aloft. For the A-10 Thunderbolt II, they made a rather glorious exception. This is the story of an aircraft that isn't just a weapons platform, but a flying embodiment of its primary weapon. It's the story of a plane considered ugly by some, slow by the standards of its peers, and a relic by accountants in distant offices. But to the soldiers on the ground who have heard its distinctive roar and the terrifying sound that follows, it is a savior. This is the story of the Fairchild Republic A-10 Thunderbolt II, better known and loved as the Warthog. To understand why the Warthog exists, you have to go back to the dense, unforgiving jungles of Vietnam. The United States Air Force, the USAF, was the most powerful air arm on the planet, equipped with technological marvels. Jets like the F-105 Thunderchief and the F-4 Phantom II could break the sound barrier and carry devastating bomb loads. They were kings of the upper sky, designed to intercept Soviet bombers or engage in high-speed dogfights. But when a platoon of infantrymen found themselves pinned down by an unseen enemy, those supersonic jets had a problem. They were too fast. A pilot screaming past at 500 miles per hour, 800 kilometers per hour, had only a split second to identify friendly troops, locate the enemy, and deliver their ordnance without hitting the wrong people. It was a mission they were never designed for. The real star of close air support, or CAS, in Vietnam was a relic from a previous generation, the A-1 Skyraider. This propeller-driven beast was slow. It could loiter over the battlefield for hours, and it was festooned with hardpoints, allowing it to carry a staggering amount of rockets and bombs. Skyraider pilots were legends, flying low into the teeth of enemy fire to protect the troops below. But the A-1 was vulnerable. It was a World War II-era design, fighting in a war filled with increasingly sophisticated anti-aircraft guns. The losses were heavy. The USAF learned a hard and bloody lesson. They had a critical gap in their arsenal. They needed a jet that could do the Skyraider's job, but could also take a punch, and punch back even harder. This need became even more acute when strategists looked at the plains of Europe. The Cold War nightmare scenario was a massive, overwhelming invasion by Soviet tank divisions pouring through the Fulda Gap in Germany. The West would be outnumbered on the ground. The only way to stop a red tide of steel was with overwhelming air power that could systematically destroy thousands of tanks and do it while under fire from a modern, integrated air defense system. The fast jets were still too fast, and the Skyraider wouldn't last 5 minutes. The need was clear. They needed a dedicated tank killer, a flying can opener. And so, in 1967, the Attack Experimental Program, or AX program, was born. The list of requirements read like a ground soldier's wish list. It had to be lethal, specifically against armored vehicles. It needed a powerful cannon, not just bombs and missiles. It had to be incredibly survivable, able to absorb significant damage and still bring its pilot home. It needed to fly low and slow, with exceptional maneuverability to hug the terrain and evade threats. It needed a long loiter time, the ability to hang around the battlefield and wait for targets. And it had to be cheap and easy to maintain, capable of operating from damaged or primitive forward airfields. This wasn't a request for a sleek fighter. This was a request for a flying tank. 2 companies made it to the final round with flying prototypes. From Northrop came the YA-9. It was a fairly conventional-looking aircraft, with a shoulder-mounted wing and engines tucked under the wing roots, close to the fuselage. It was a solid, competent design. And then there was Fairchild Republic's entry, the YA-10. It looked different. It was brutally functional. The engines weren't tucked neatly away. They were mounted high on pylons at the rear of the fuselage, set wide apart. The wings were large, straight, and low-mounted, built for lift, not for speed. The cockpit was pushed far forward, giving the pilot a commanding view of the ground below. And right there, in the nose, slightly offset to the port side, was the reason for its entire existence: a massive 7-barrel Gatling cannon. The two aircraft went head-to-head in a fly-off in 1972. The YA-9 was slightly faster and more agile in some respects, but the YA-10 was built for the mission. Its engine placement protected them from ground fire and each other. One could be destroyed, and the other would keep running, shielded by the fuselage and tailplanes. The straight wings were more efficient for low-level loitering. The entire design was simpler, more rugged, and easier to maintain in the field. In January 1973, the USAF made its choice. The brutal, purpose-built YA-10 was the winner. The Warthog had been born. To truly appreciate the A-10, you have to dissect it, piece by brutal piece, and you must start with the gun. It's not just a weapon on the plane is a delivery system for the gun. The General Electric GAU-8 Avenger is, without exaggeration, a monster. It is a hydraulically driven 7-barrel Gatling-style autocannon that is over 19 feet, almost 6 meters, long from the ammunition drum to the muzzle. The gun itself weighs over 600 pounds, 272 kilograms, but its complete system, with the massive drum feeder, weighs over 4,000 pounds, 1,114 kilograms, fully loaded. That is nearly 20% of the aircraft's entire empty weight. The ammunition drum can hold up to 174 rounds, each one a 30mm shell, roughly the size of a glass milk bottle. It fires these massive shells at a rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. The recoil force from the cannon is immense, over 1,000 pounds force, 45 kilonewtons, which is more than the thrust produced by one of the A-10's engines. This is why the gun had to be mounted on the aircraft's centerline. If it were off to one side, the recoil would push the plane's nose sideways every time it fired. Even on the centerline, the nose is actually built a few inches to the starboard side, while the firing barrel of the cannon is on the port side of the nose gear, so that the firing barrel is directly on the aircraft's true centerline. It fires a mix of ammunition, but the most famous is the GAU-14 armor-piercing incendiary round, which uses a depleted uranium penetrator. This incredibly dense material can punch through the top armor of almost any main battle tank. The sound it makes is not a series of bangs, it's a deep, guttural, terrifying noise often described as tearing celestial canvas, officially and lovingly nicknamed the BRRRRT. But a weapon that effective is useless if the plane carrying it is shot down on the first pass. The designers at Fairchild Republic took survivability to an extreme. They knew A-10 pilots would be flying low, in what they call the hornet's nest of ground fire. So they built the pilot a protective shell. The cockpit and parts of the flight control system are enclosed in a 1,200-pound, 540 kilograms titanium bathtub. This armor is designed to withstand direct hits from armor-piercing projectiles up to 23 millimeters in caliber, and even larger high-explosive shells. The canopy is bulletproof. The idea is simple. No matter what happens to the rest of the plane, the pilot must be protected. This philosophy of toughness extends to every part of the aircraft. It has triple redundancy in many of its systems. The flight controls are a prime example. It has 2 separate hydraulic systems, but if both are shot out, the pilot can fly the plane using a manual reversion system of steel cables. It's a purely mechanical backup. It's harder to fly, but it allows a pilot to get a crippled plane home. The engines, 2 General Electric TF-34 turbofans, are mounted high and wide. This placement shields them from ground fire, minimizes their infrared signature from threats below, and separates them. A hit on one engine is unlikely to affect the other. The plane can fly, take off, and land on a single engine. The twin vertical stabilizers also provide redundancy. It can fly with one completely blown off. The fuel tanks are self-sealing and filled with fire-suppressing foam. If a projectile punctures a tank, the foam prevents an explosion and the rubber lining helps seal the hole. Even the wings, which look so simple, are masterpieces of functional design. The large, high aspect ratio straight wings are not built for speed. They are built for lift. They allow the A-10 to fly at a relatively slow speed of 300 miles per hour, 480 kilometers per hour, giving the pilot time to identify targets. They allow it to make tight turns at low altitudes and carry a heavy payload of up to 16,000 pounds, 7,250 kilograms, of ordnance on its 11 hardpoints. These wings also enable it to operate from very short and rough runways. The landing gear is robust, with low-pressure tires, and it retracts into pods that leave the wheels partially exposed. This means if the pilot has to make a belly landing with the gear up, the plane lands on the protruding wheels, making the landing more controllable and causing less damage to the fuselage. Every single element of the A-10 shouts its purpose. Go to the fight, stay in the fight, win the fight, and come home. For years after its introduction in 1977, the A-10 had a quiet career. It was the unglamorous workhorse of the USAF. Fighter pilots in sleek F-15s and F-16s got the glory. The Warthog pilots just trained endlessly for a war they hoped would never come. There was even talk of replacing it, of giving its mission to a faster, more versatile jet. Skeptics said it was too slow and would be a sitting duck in a real war. Then, in 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. The Cold War never went hot in Europe, but a massive armored army was on the move in the desert. This was the test the A-10 was built for. This was Operation Desert Storm. The Warthog's performance in the Gulf War was nothing short of legendary. The skeptics were silenced, utterly and completely. A-10s flew over 8,000 combat sorties, achieving a mission-capable rate of 95.7%, the highest of any aircraft in the theater. They were devastatingly effective. Official reports credited the A-10s with destroying more than 900 Iraqi tanks, 2,000 other military vehicles, and 1,200 artillery pieces. They fired more than 300 Maverick missiles and unleashed nearly 1 million rounds of 30mm ammunition. They were the undisputed kings of tank killing. But beyond the statistics were the stories of their incredible toughness. Warthogs would return to base riddled with holes from anti-aircraft fire. One A-10 took a direct hit from what was likely a shoulder-fired missile, blowing a huge hole in its right wing. The pilot flew it for another hour, landed safely, and the aircraft was repaired and flying again within a week. The troops on the ground fell in love with the ugly plane that saved their lives time and time again. After the Gulf, the A-10's mission evolved. In the Balkans during the 1990s, and later in Afghanistan and Iraq after 2001, the nature of war changed. The threat was no longer massive columns of tanks, but insurgents hidden in mountains or urban environments. The A-10 adapted. It became a premier platform for what's known as combat search and rescue, and for providing precision strikes in support of special operations forces. Its ability to loiter, its large payload, and the pinpoint accuracy of its cannon made it invaluable. One of the most famous stories of its resilience comes from Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. Captain Kim Campbell was flying a mission over Baghdad when her A-10 was rocked by an explosion. The plane went into an uncontrolled roll, trying to nosedive into the ground. She had lost all hydraulic power. The normal procedure would be to eject, but she was over a hostile city. Instead, she engaged the manual reversion system, the backup steel cables. Wrestling with the controls, fighting the crippled aircraft every second, she managed to regain control. She flew the severely damaged plane for an hour back to her base, landing it safely. An inspection revealed hundreds of holes in the airframe, a destroyed engine, and massive damage to the tail and hydraulic lines. She had done what the plane was designed to allow her to do: survive. Which brings us to the Warthog's most recent and perhaps most challenging battle. Its fight for survival against budget cuts. For more than a decade, the USAF has repeatedly tried to retire the A-10 fleet. The arguments are, on the surface, logical. The airframes are old, maintaining them is expensive, and in a future conflict against a peer adversary like China or Russia with advanced surface-to-air missiles, a slow, low-flying aircraft like the A-10 would be highly vulnerable. The plan has been to replace its CAS role with multi-role fighters like the F-35 Lightning II. But every time the retirement plan comes up, it meets fierce resistance. Not just from nostalgic fans, but from the United States Army, the Marine Corps, and members of Congress. They argue that nothing in the current arsenal can do what the A-10 does. The F-35 is a technological marvel, but it cannot loiter over a firefight for an hour. It can't carry the same massive, diverse payload. It can't take the same level of punishment, And crucially, it doesn't have the GAU-8 Avenger. Proponents argue that retiring the A-10 without a true dedicated replacement would be gambling with the lives of ground troops. This tug-of-war has kept the Warthog flying long past its intended expiration date. To keep it relevant, the fleet was upgraded to the A-10C standard, giving it a modern glass cockpit, smart bomb capabilities, and better targeting systems. There's even a program to re-wing a large portion of the fleet to extend their service life into the 2030s. The Unkillable airplane is proving just as hard to kill in the halls of government as it is on the battlefield. The A-10 Thunderbolt II is an anomaly in the world of modern military aviation. It is not the fastest, the stealthiest, or the most technologically advanced. It is a specialist, a master of a single, brutal craft. It's a testament to a design philosophy that prioritized function over form, survivability over speed, and raw, overwhelming firepower above all else. It is a tool built for the ugliest parts of war, and for nearly 50 years, it has performed that job with unparalleled distinction. Whether it flies for another 5 years or another 20, its legacy is already secure. It is the Warthog, the flying gun, the guardian angel of the infantry. And that's a legacy built not just on titanium and technology, but on the trust of every soldier who ever looked up, saw its unmistakable shape, and knew that help had most definitely arrived. Now, we're always on the hunt for the next piece of military history to put under the microscope. The A-10 is a legend. But what other war machines, forgotten battles, or heroic figures are you burning to see covered? Consider this your official mission briefing to us. Drop your best ideas in the comments below. We read every single one, and your suggestion could become our next deep dive. If you enjoy exploring the stories behind these incredible machines and the people who operated them, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hitting that button ensures you won't miss our next operation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.